Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering the Manchester City being champions of the Premier League, winning their fourth consecutive title. We will react to Arsenal's record-breaking season despite not getting any silverware. We'll talk about who Gareth Southgate should take to the Euros. We react to Argentina and US dropping their preliminary Copa America squads for the summer. And it will also be, and then please stick around for the end of the show. I'll be giving you my thoughts on the Jurgen Klopp's emotional farewell and Arne Slot being slated as the new manager for Liverpool. But to start off, we have to start off with Manchester City. They are the Premier League champions yet again, fourth consecutive title in a row. Great achievement, historic achievement, doing something in the Premier League era no team has never done. Now they are winning. Now they have won 5 of the last 6 Premier Leagues. Pep Guardiola has won 5 Premier Leagues. Record-breaking numbers, mind-boggling numbers that don't make sense. The level of consistency, 89 points, 91 points, 99 points, this amount of points. It's just the Centurion team getting to 100 points. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's a remarkable achievement. And you can't take away from what they have done. Or, well, you can, but that's a whole new topic that we'll discuss later on. But overall, I told myself entering this weekend, this Premier League race could really be over in the first half. And it really felt like that's what we were going to get. With Phil Foden scoring 2 minutes in, I was like, oh boy. Oh no. That's wraps. Once Phil Foden went in, made it 1-0, I was just like, yeah, let's forget about it. Then Phil Foden, just a second in the 18th minute. And you're just thinking like, oh wow, this is really going to be over in the first half. Exactly like I thought it would be. Then Kudus delivered an amazing... By the way, West Ham were completely dominated this game. They couldn't even grasp the ball. When you look at 28 shots to 3 shots for West Ham, 28 for City, 72% possession. West Ham were struggling to get a hold of the ball. West Ham were struggling to get to the other side of the pitch. But whenever on that set piece, wonderful overhead kick, West Ham was able to make it 1. At least it brought a sense of, okay, like maybe there's something going on, especially at half times between the games. Even though Arsenal, in their game, they were struggling against Everton, who put up a good fight against them, who have had a strong defensive record entering that game. They ended up scoring first to Idrissi Gueye. Tomiyasu quickly leveled it. And it took them to the 89th minute for them to find the winner with Kai Havertz off a mistake with one of the Evertonian play. I believe it was Ashley Young. Ashley Young playing a horrible ball that got intercepted and led to a quick counter. I think Odegaard scuffs the shot. Havertz is there to finish it home, who ends off his very good debut campaign with Arsenal with another goal to add to his tally. A winning goal. You see, as soon as Havertz scores that goal, it's complete. There's no celebrations and none of that. It's just waiting on the City game. And yeah, with the City game, Kudus scored that goal, but it was only going one way. In that second half, it was just City. And then Alfonso Areola, he makes a mistake, 3-1. That is the Premier League title for Manchester City. Now, these are video game numbers that are Manchester City. 4 consecutive Premier Leagues. It's like when you're playing FIFA career mode and you're playing on amateur level. It's easy. It's easy to win 4 Premier Leagues in a row. That's what this is. 4 Premier Leagues in a row, and it's getting to the point it's amazing the sort of motivation that they go in year out. Now Pep Guardiola, he came out after game saying, yeah, this was our my main motivation entering the season was to do something that nobody else has done in winning 4 Premier Leagues in a row. That was the motivation. Right now, he was talking about right now how he doesn't have any, and he needs to search through that, figure out like what is the motivation for next season. Because 4 Premier League in a row, that's just, eventually, wow. But regarding and he did come out talking about how he's closer to the end than the beginning, or he's closer to leaving than staying, something like that. But basically saying like he's been managing for Manchester City a very, very long time. He doesn't see himself managing that amount of time left since he's came in. So but that was kind of stating the obvious. He's been there since 2016, I believe now, 8-9 years. He's not gonna stay for another 8-9 years. Let's be realistic. But no, it's 4 in a row is crazy. The consistency, the levels, they have an FA Cup final now that they're preparing for this Saturday against Manchester United. You have to say they are massive, massive favorites to win that, just because of just the sheer talent amongst the squad. Phil Foden, remarkable season for him. Probably really close to me for up there with Premier League Player of the Year. Whenever his team needed him the most, whenever they needed one result, one win to win, he showed up right away. 2nd minute, 18th minute. The big time goals in key games that he's had to make. When you look at, they ended up losing this tie, but first leg against Real Madrid, they're down 2-1. They're in the Bernabeu, and he scores a rocket to make it 2-2. They eventually went on to score 3-2, and then Real Madrid equalized 3-3. But he has a lot of crucial goals, and when you look at the goals that he scored this season, it's not just he has some proper bangers this season. Some proper bangers, some good goals. It's not just tap-ins or just, no, he has proper goals and essential goals. He scored 19 goals. He won PFA Player of the Year. He was Player of the Match on Sunday by getting that brace in the 18th minute. He said, we played this scenario a couple times over the years, so I think it helps with the nerves, and I thought today we just looked confident, just played our football, and again, it paid off. He said about the match itself, it was almost a perfect start. Sometimes I believe in scoring a bit too early. So I had to stay switched on. We got the second and settled in a bit. But he is a phenomenal player. And when you have the ability that Manchester City has, where they go and they win the treble last season, and then they bring in $100 million center back that didn't really even fit in right away. He was struggling a lot earlier this season. They couldn't really find a position for him. Eventually, they start putting him at a fullback position that he only played mostly that earlier in his career, trying to find a way to get him in the team. But their ability that they can do that, and they can kind of make like a luxury signing in Guardiola and still perform to levels that they do, just shows just the amount of capabilities that they have to spend. And at the end of the day, whenever you can look, the team plays amazing football, the manager is brilliant and all that. I'm not taking it away, but when you can spend the sheer amount of money that they have access to bring in guys, you bring in a Jack Grealish, in the first year he barely plays. He doesn't really play. He's not like a normal big club situation. Forget a smaller team, but a normal, let's say a team like United or Chelsea or something. If they buy $100 million player, he is immediately, as soon as he gets 1 week of training, he's immediately put in the starting lineup, and he becomes a pivotal part of that team. When you're a team of Man City and you have the money that you have within your squad and the capabilities of building an A team and a B team that's good enough to compete, You can make those splash $100 million signings, and if they don't turn out right away, well, still it's fine. You can ease them into it that other teams don't have the luxury of doing, and still being able to compete the way Manchester City has. So I mean, the money and the sheer spending, as much as we will try to act like is not that big of a deal, is a massive, massive deal, and the fans recognize that too. Now, obviously, you got Manchester City supporters and Pep Guardiola and Manchester City board members trying to defend, the club by like people try to delegitimize their trophies. But at the end of the day, the facts is the facts. The facts is the facts, and you cannot hide away from that. You can't hide away from the 115 charges by the Premier League. You can't hide away from the fact of the charges from UEFA. And by the way, UEFA tried to charge them too, but there was some loophole that they found in that they didn't sue Manchester City within the 2-year period or something that let City go off unpunished. But I do believe that part of UEFA feeling like they didn't punish City the way that they should have been deserved to be punished, they're getting back at them with this whole Girona City situation of multi-club ownership. Not letting them, because of Alexander Sheffrin, UEFA president, he said in an interview with Gary Neville on his show of I believe this was about a year ago or so, talking about multi-club ownership and them willing to bend it a little bit, be more flexible to allow multi-club ownerships and to allow those teams in the Champions League. He said that with his own words, but now they're coming hard down on Manchester City and Girona, saying they're both. They won't be both allowed to play in the Champions League. One is going to have to play in the Europa League, which would be Girona due to league position or whatever. I think that's coming. I think that's kind of like a get back from UEFA, kind of. So you cannot argue the money that they spent, but it is an achievement. It is an achievement. I mean, maybe I'm sounding salty. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but and I didn't root for Arsenal. I wanted City to win, but because I'm a Chelsea supporter, but. The facts are the facts. The facts are the facts. We're gonna take a short break here, but when we come back, we will discuss Arsenal's record-breaking season, despite not getting any silverware.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign. A sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign. A sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing.
Before the break, I discussed the Manchester City becoming 4 times consecutive Premier League champions, but now I'm gonna discuss Arsenal. Despite them having a record-breaking season, this season, when it comes to the most amount of wins that they've ever had in the Premier League era, Arsenal, this is a historic, legendary club. The most amount of wins that they have this season. I believe they conceded the least amount of goals this season. There was a lot of stats whenever the Arsenal and Mikel Arteta were getting presented at the end of the game. When Mikel Arteta was talking to the fans, there was a lot of statistics that was bringing about, and it was kind of remarkable the amount of records that they broke, the sheer dominance of their defense, and the fact that they finished 2 points off the title. By the way, 89 points is remarkable. Still, 89 points. It is remarkable. That is a remarkable amount of points, and a lot of nowadays with the amount of money that Manchester City are able to spend nowadays, that's not enough. But a normal Premier League era back then, that would have been more than enough. Well, I mean, you look at it throughout the season, beating West Ham 6-0, Burnley 5-0, Sheffield 6-0. That is the first side in English league football history to win 3 successive away games by 5+ goals. 3. They only conceded 29 goals, which is 5 less than any other team. And that is their best that their defense has been in 20 years. They had more points than the team that won the Premier League as Invincibles. They finished with more points than the Invincibles team. They had their goalkeeper won the Premier League Golden Glove, keeping 16 clean sheets. That's because of the strength of the defense. As you know, even him, he was solid. But no, it was dominance. It was dominance. They were so good. The consistency. They struggled earlier this season. They were dropping a little bit of games here and there, a little bit of struggle earlier in the season, which ended up biting them when the time comes. But they were able to rediscover some of the good form that they were on last year. They were able to maintain. They integrated Kai Havertz in brilliantly. He started being a massive, massive part of the team. So, it's just disappointing if you're an Arsenal fan, the way that you were able to, dominate this season and not being able to get any sort of silverware, no FA Cup, no FA Cup. And maybe this is kind of like a wake up call to Mikel Arteta, who's only won 2 trophies in 6 years. Maybe he should take the EFL and the FA Cup more seriously next season, because Jurgen Klopp was kind of at a crossroads too a few years ago, where he had all the years of dominance, but he only had a Premier League and a Champions League. He only had a Premier League and a Champions League to show for it. Then he did start taking the EFL Cup and the FA Cup more seriously. Won 2 EFL Cups, won 1 FA Cup. Maybe Mikel Arteta needs to start doing that, because he needs to add to his trophy cabinet. Because if the success doesn't start coming in Europe, and he's continuing not being able to get over the line in the Premier League, then he's gonna need some sort of trophies, to back himself with as a protection. Not saying he's gonna get sacked or anything. He's really beloved at the football club and everything. But that can change really quickly. You saw the way that Arsenal fans, they turned on Arsene Wenger. If they were willing to turn on Arsene Wenger, which is kind of like Mr. Arsenal, they'll have no problem with turning with me. In fact, they've went through their stages where they turned against Mikel Arteta. They did. They had those stretches. 2-3 years ago, a lot of people were Mikel Arteta out. So, now, does this second place feel different from last year's second place? Yes, I think this second place, they had a more sense of belief. They had a more experience. And, last year there was always a sense of, Manchester City, they're just going to do it. Like, let's be real. It was only really, but this season, amongst the Arsenal fans, there was a little bit of belief there. Even though they all knew in the back of the mind they're eventually going to fall short, there was a little bit of belief. I mean, there was all the way belief to the last day, where I was looking like Arsenal fans, they're they're looking very disappointed when Foden was able to get the goals against West Ham, and in my head I'm like, what did you expect? You expected West Ham to do you a favor? West Ham to get a result at the Etihad, with Manchester City having all to play for and West Ham having nothing to play for? Like, at least maybe if West Ham had, back then when Man City were playing QPR, it didn't end up mattering at the end. But QPR was playing for something when, relegation. That ended up not being matter because someone else dropped points somewhere, so, QPR was still safe. But they didn't know it at the time, and QPR were playing for something very, very important that City had to take care of. There's none of that. this year. Since 2024, Arsenal won 16 out of 18 games. They scored 54 goals and they only conceded 9. But Manchester City, they went unbeaten in 2024. Arsenal did lose that game to Aston Villa, which, that was the game that they dropped points that, allowed City to find the hole in the crevice to get there. Actually, I made a mistake. When I said Arsenal finished with more points than the Invincibles team, I was wrong. The Invincibles team I'm looking at it right now, the Invincibles team had 90 points. That Arsenal team had 89. So I was wrong about that. But, it was still, you see, it was very, very close. But they did set a club record of 28 Premier League victories. And they scored 91 goals, which is a club record in the Premier League. They were unbeaten against the Big Six, and they took 22 points from 10 games against City, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Tottenham. And they had the best defensive record within those teams. Everything was just so tight. It was all marginal. It was, if this goes this way, if this goes that way, but that's what it's like in a title race going against Manchester City. It is. Manchester City, they lost, like in these last 6 years, the one title they lost to Liverpool didn't come down. It was a Liverpool, they ran away with it. Within the first 4 or 5 months, we knew that they were going to win the Premier League. City were just way off it that year compared to their standards. I still think they had like 80 plus points or something, but it was clear from way earlier in the season, this Liverpool, they're running away with it. But every single title race that came down to the wire, Manchester City were always the ones that won it, because they were always clinical. Once you gave them an opportunity to take the lead, they never looked back. They kept it consistent from there. They relish under the pressure of playing with someone chasing from behind them. They relish that kind of pressure. They enjoy it. They dominate through that pressure. They don't crack. They don't fold in that pressure. And Arsenal, they folded when they lost to Aston Villa. They folded. You go back to that game, Aston Villa, that game was kind of like a representation kind of this title race. In fact, that they start off very, very well, but Aston Villa, they were solid though. Aston Villa, they stayed true to their identity. They waved the storm, and then Aston Villa in the second half, they steadily, as the game stayed 0-0, the more pressure got onto Arsenal to get the breakthrough, to get the 3 points. But then Aston Villa started picking up confidence, moving the ball from one side of the pitch to another, collectively attacking forward, and eventually getting the goal and getting the second on the break. And there's that. Manchester City, there's your opening. And then once you give them an opening, run away with it. And that's kind of how the title race goes. I really do believe if Arsenal, they want to win the title next year, they can't let it be close. I mean, and that's crazy to say with the way. But if Manchester City, if they're going to continue, if there's no drop off in them, if they're going to continue with these 90-point seasons, I don't see how Arsenal does it, just because of the way Manchester City, they relish playing in these title races, and they're not scared of teams chasing them from the back and from behind. In fact, I think that kind of elevates their performances, which is crazy. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to discuss the Euros. Gareth Southgate and his England squad for the Euros, who he should take to the Euros.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed Arsenal's record-breaking season. Despite not getting any silverware, we have to discuss Gareth Southgate and his England squad for these upcoming European Championship. Who should he take to the Euros? Now, I'm not gonna sit here. I'm not gonna sit here and talk about some of these, useless topics like he's gonna take. We know the obvious: the Declan Rices, the Jude Bellinghams. The Harry Kanes, they're going. I'm not even gonna discuss. But there's some players that are potentially at risk that might not make it. Marcus Rashford, his position. Anthony Gordon, he's had an excellent season. Can he make a breakthrough to get in? What's his name? Luke Shaw at the left back position. Where do the England go for the left back position? Cole Palmer. Now, for me, Cole Palmer, him being in the squad is a joke. That should not even be a question. But for me, it's another question to be asked is, could he make the starting lineup? So there's a lot of things that I want to go. First of all, let's start off with Harry Kane. He's gonna be the number 9, right? But who should go in alongside him? Now, you have an option of Ollie Watkins, who's had an amazing season for Aston Villa. That is, that's very, very talented player. Good form, 19 goals, 19 non-penalty goals, 13 assists. He's stretchy, he has verticality, all that. He's a very, very good player. He has 11 caps for England. He started 4 games and scored 3 times for them. But you also have a guy like Ivan Toney, who has pace. He can be the focal point of the head of an attack. He's a very, very good player, but his form when it comes to club football is nowhere near as good as Ollie Watkins, and he had that ban for FA breaching betting rules and all that. But those are the two options. I think Ollie Watkins gives you something a little bit different, more runs in behind. He's a little bit of a more wild card type of number 9, while Ivan Toney gives you a little similar thing with Kane. I think of your Southgate, when you're looking at the second striker, you want to bring somebody that if you're down 1-0 against France, 70th minute, who can you trust to go on there and to get a goal, to take it to extra time, and somebody that can change the way the game is being played. Now that's up to Gareth Southgate and what he believes. But the form says you have to go with Ollie Watkins. Left back, huge problem for them. Now, lately, left backs have been, Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell. Luke Shaw, he's been first choice left back, but he's been injured all season. He's barely played this season. He suffered another setback from the latest injury. Ben Chilwell, he's been injured all season, and he was not good when he played against Brazil and Belgium. He was very bad. Kieran Trippier, he's been very important for England at that left back position, even though he is a right back over the last few years. In major games, he's been playing at that but he's been on horrible form this season. He has been playing in the World Cup qualifiers for our Euro qualifiers. Like, he played against Italy and all that in the crucial qualifiers, but he's been on bad form this season. But I still think just his experience will get him in there. And then you got guys like Rico Lewis or Joe Gomez. That's just that are options. But I think that left back position is a very, very massive concern. Unless Kieran Trippier, he proves to Gareth Southgate what happened this season was just a Newcastle issue, and he's still a brilliant, brilliant footballer. Now, Kyle Walker, he's the right back. Okay, John Stones, Harry Maguire, they'll be the two center backs. Now, who's gonna give them, backup options? Eric Dyer, who's been very, very good since he went to Bayern, and this is somebody Gareth Southgate has called up in the squad in the past, so he does have the experience with him. This is not like someone else who was going to Germany, who hasn't really played much with England. Then it would have been tough because Gareth Southgate tends to stick with his favorites. But this is a guy that's that's played that went to the World Cup under Gareth Southgate. So I think his performances and his form at Bayern really give him a very good chance. I think Ben White would have been the perfect player, in these kind of tournaments, with a squad like a limited squad, a guy that can give you multiple positions that he can play, gives you flexibility, being a right back, being a center back. Now, if you want to switch to a back three, you can play him as an outside center back. He's perfect flexibility, the perfect kind of player to have in the squad, and he's played very, very good form. He's been on very, very good form, but there's that issue, and he's unavailable for selection. Why that happened, we don't know. All that, the World Cup issue, but that would have been a very, very important, a very, very crucial player. But yeah, that's the issue. That's an issue for them to decide. But we gotta go to the attack now. I'm gonna go midfield later. I'm gonna say midfield for now. But the attack, Marcus Rashford, his place. He provides verticality. He can run in behind. But there's plenty of wingers that's had very, very good seasons, like a Phil Foden, that's been amazing. Anthony Gordon, that's been amazing. Bukayo Saka has been brilliant. These are guys, Bukayo Saka, Harry Kane, Phil Foden, they're all locks. And then you got a guy like Anthony Gordon that, based on form, really deserves to get in over Rashford. Grealish is another guy. He missed the last window, and he hasn't really been in for the City squad consistently. But he was a very, very important player in the last Euros. So he's a good option. And Cole Palmer, who's based on all these players, besides Harry Kane, he's probably been the most informed of all of them. Harry Kane, Phil Foden, and Cole Palmer. If you want to base on a front three of alone just based on form, you could argue it should be Cole Palmer, Harry Kane, and Phil Foden. I'd argue Cole Palmer over Bukayo Saka. Yeah. And I definitely think he should be in the squad. So, there's a lot of maneuvering Gareth Southgate. Personally, I wouldn't. If it comes down to like a Cole Palmer or Gordon over Rashford, I would do it just because of the sheer, when Rashford typically, he performs well in international tournaments coming off of a good season. Like at the World Cup, he was good at the World Cup, but he was on a good run at Manchester United beforehand. At the whenever at the Euros he was struggling. Whenever with Manchester United he was struggling, he went into the Euros and struggled even more. Ended up missing the penalty that helped them lose the Euro finals, and he didn't have a good tournament at all. He barely got to play that tournament. So I would bring in a guy like Anthony Gordon, who has been excellent this season. He will bring him on the pitch. He gives you something different, a different dynamic. Yeah, I think he's very disciplined, has good work rate. Why not? And he could play run. Now midfield. Now let's get to the midfield real quick. Now Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, forget about it. They're starting. Boom. Now the third option, you got Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has been, recently he has been injured, but he's, it's looking like he's going to still play at the Euros. Now, for me, he is the most talented player on this team, Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's very, very disrespected in the way he's been treated, in my opinion, by Gareth Southgate. A player of his kind of talent should never be on the fringes. They should build the team around him. Now, if he's defensively weak, okay, then build around that. Protect him defensively. Don't play him outright. Put him in midfield. Put him in alongside Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham. He can fit that fold perfectly. His ability to play the ball. Now, when you put him in midfield, you take away his crossing ability per se, because he's not being able to put it. But he still has brilliant control. His ability to play balls in behind. His vision. You cannot deny the sheer talent in his team. So definitely, I think he's a lock to make the squad, and I think he should be starting. But then, guys like, I think Conor Gallagher, he will be very important because of his work rate, his discipline, his work rate, his leadership. Calvin Phillips, I don't think he should be picked. No, he's been so disappointing since he signed for City, been disappointing at West Ham. Kobe Mainoo, he has a good prospect even though he's young. He's a good prospect even though he's young, he has talent and all that. But somebody that I won't sleep on is Jordan Henderson. Now, his move to Saudi Arabia, obviously is not great. And then he went to Ajax, which he hasn't really been lighting up the world. But his experience, his ability to calm down the team, his leadership, his ability to be on the ball, to be composed, to move it from one end, just to be a composer, just to make the team more fluid, I think you should take him to the Euros. I really think he'll be a valuable part of the Euros. I don't necessarily he shouldn't start right away. Maybe after a few games ease him in back into the lineup like they did at the World Cup. But he ended up being a pivotal part of that World Cup team, and he's very, very disrespected in England just because he doesn't have the ability of a Jude Bellingham or Declan Rice, but he's still, the way he's a composer, his experience, he will be very, very valuable for this England team. So for me, I think Gareth Southgate should definitely take him. But Gareth Southgate, he has a lot to do. We will discuss later on with this England squad. There's a lot of little here and there's, and we could go in depth with each position group. But we're running out of time and we got to move on. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Argentina and US. They dropped their preliminary squads for this upcoming Copa America this summer.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed Gareth Southgate and who he should take to the Euros. Now we are going to react to Argentina and the United States dropping their preliminary Copa America squads. I don't understand these teams dropping their preliminary squads just to cut a few guys right before the tournament. I don't know, whatever. But let's start off with Argentina. Lionel Scaloni. Sorry about that. Yesterday, yesterday, he announced his 29-man squad for Argentina's upcoming friendlies against Ecuador and Guatemala. And it is the provisional squad for the Euros. Now, for the Copa America. And at the Copa America, you could only take 26. So, really, he needs to cut 3 people, maybe more. But, there's still some decisions that are that we could break down. Now, goalkeeper-wise, it remains the same. Emiliano Martinez, he's the guy. Franco Armani, River Plate, he played at the World Cup in 2018 after coming in for Willy Caballero. But overall, when you look at this team, a lot of these same guys that won a World Cup, with Emiliano Martinez, Marcus Acuna, Lisandro Martinez, Montiel, Otamendi, Cristiano Romero, Tagliafico, Lo Celso, Fernandez, Alexis McAllister, Paredes, DePaul, Alvarez, Correa, Di Maria, Lautaro Martinez, Lionel Messi. But you get a little bit of some new guys coming in. A guy from Monza, Italy, like Valentin Carboni, 19-year-old. You get the 19-year-old from Brighton, defender, Valentin Barco, who only has one cap. The Valentin Carboni, he only has one cap too. And then you got Alejandro Garnacho coming in from United at 19 years old. And this is Alejandro Garnacho that provides a little bit something different. I think with him, with his dynamism, his verticality, his ability to get in behind with pace, his ability to be direct, to go at defenders at one-on-one with pace, with strength, he could be a guy that can make those clever runs in behind that allows Messi to drop in midfield and to play the ball in behind to him, and he can make the runs off Messi. And I think that could be a beautiful partnership. And he's also a guy that you can bring in the last 30-40 minutes when a team is tired to really, really stretch out a back line. I think he has quality to do it. He's been playing pretty good for Manchester United. I think he has ability. And I think he's a good addition to the squad. Now, Paulo Dybala, he's been on. I think he's. I think he's been very, very good this season. Watching him at oh my God, the club is blanking. At Roma, at Roma. I think he's had a very, very good season this season. They went to the Europa League semifinal, but he's not in the squad. Now, he's had a very rough career at Argentina, to say the least. The struggles of trying to play him and Messi, earlier on in his Argentina career, as he started to play, he suffered a red card in the World Cup qualifier for, I believe, the 2018 World Cup. He suffered a red card, I think it was against Uruguay or something. He came off the pitch crying, and ever since, he hasn't really had a real shot in this Argentina team. He missed the Argentina team that won the Copa America in 2019. He's missing this Argentina team in the Copa America this year. He was on the team that won the World Cup, but didn't really play at all much for a player of his ability. And it is really a shame because he is talented. He just hasn't been able to fit in the puzzle of this Argentina team. The way that they play too is a little bit more defensive, more solid, and you have the guys in the midfield, the workhorses like a Paredes, like a Rodrigo De Paul, that gives you something. That it's more of what Alexis McAllister. That's more of what Lionel Scaloni wants to do rather than a guy like Paulo Dybala, because he's not gonna play right up top with Messi. You're gonna want to play him in the midfield, and he doesn't really give you the attributes that Scaloni wants, and it's a very difficult situation. But as far as this Argentina squad, just in general, I mean, the same core guys that won the World Cup. You got some clutch players in here, like a guy like Angel Di Maria, who's never missed in a final, who's scored in every final that he's played in, has 138 appearances. You got a guy like Messi with 180 appearances, a guy like Otamendi with 111 appearances. So there's experience in this team, there's youth in this team, there's World Cup winners in this team. It's a talented team. Ezequiel Palacios coming off of a remarkable season at Leverkusen. Enzo Fernandez, now him being in, he just recently got surgery. Will he be able to recover and be completely fit and be firing in all cylinders for Copa America? He's going to be key. Lisandro Martinez, he's in the squad despite having a injury-ravaged season. Can he get into the fold. He's going to be an important part of this team. He didn't start at the World Cup, but he ended up being important. Now, the center-back partnership, we all assume is going to be Christian Romero and Nicolas Otamendi, but a guy like Lisandro Martinez, he's going to be key throughout the tournament. So can he ease himself in? And this is Copa America. This is Copa America that they play rough, conumble football. It's aggressive football. So they will attack the injuries. They won't be afraid to. They take on Canada, opening game of the Copa America. Not opening game of the Copa America, but their opening game. Then they take on Chile, and then they take on Peru. So obviously they're the favorites in the group, but not an easy group per se. But they have talents. So then we got to talk about the U.S. men's national team. They announced their squad for Copa America, and they announced also a provisional squad as well, but it's a 27-man squad. So essentially, they only need to cut one person. Now they're gonna play friendlies against Colombia and Brazil, and this is their main tune-up for the World Cup in 2026. Because I can almost guarantee they're not taking a real team to the Gold Cup. With fullbacks, Anthony Robinson, Joe Scally gets in. Shaq Moore is the one a lot of people are talking about. Shaq Moore getting in, and Christopher Lund getting in. Now Shaq Moore, he's a guy that's not really dominating MLS. He's an okay one-on-one defender, but you got a guy like Brian Reynolds or Reggie Cannon that are, in my opinion, just better players. Playing for, in Europe, don't really understand the addition of Shaq Moore. Don't really understand what he provides for you. He's not that talented, but Greg Berhalter has his just bad moments. Now, what they did in the midfield, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Tyler Adams, Joe Reyna, Johnny Cardoso, Luca De La Torre, Malik Tillman, Timothy Tillman. I like those. I like every single midfielder. Questions were asked about Timothy Tillman, but I understand the addition. He's probably going to be the guy that might be cut from the 27-man squad, but Johnny Cardoso, he's been very, very good this season. Luca De La Torre, they've been good this season. Malik Tillman, he's having an amazing season. So, and then Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Tyler Adams, Gio Reyna, they pick for themselves. But yeah, Timothy Tillman, he's probably going to be the one that's probably cut from this roster. But, I could see wanting to bring him in to see a look. Like Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, Brendan Aronson, Haji Wright, they're listed as the wingers. They're all... It's pretty obvious, they're all why Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah, they're going to be the starters. Haji Wright, he's been very, very good for Coventry. We saw whenever he played against United in that cup final or semi-final. He's going to be a good option. He's a guy that can be vertical too, kind of like Tim Weah. And you could play him as a striker. He provides you flexibility. Now, behind those players, there's... It's a little bit of a struggle. Kevin Paredes, Brendan Aronson, they're okay. They're not the best of players. Alejandro Zendejas, he's an option, but it is. I think there's better. I think that's one of the weaker spots in the squad, the depth at winger behind Pulisic, Weah, and right. Now strikers. Balogun, Sargent, Pepe. All of those are, for me, Balogun and Sargent, very, very good. Pepe, very, very good. I think that three should stay. I think they're the three number 9s, the best three number 9s that we have. Florian Balogun, he's had a little bit of a down season. at Monaco, but he's still a brilliant player. And the goals that he scored last season, no striker is capable of that amongst the group of people we have. Now Haji Wright, he's going to be an option too. Even though he's listed as a winger, he's going to be an option as striker. Josh Sargent, I think he provides good hold-up play. He's technically gifted, and he doesn't have the goals to say, but he's kind of like he's a very good, he's nowhere near the caliber of this player. This is a much better player than him, but he's a little bit of like a Josh Sargent. I mean, a little bit like a Gabriel Jesus. Now, whether he could be a striker or not, on his own, I don't know. But if he can play against a guy underneath someone, or if you bring him in later on to play underneath the striker, I think he can be very, very valuable. And then Ricardo Pepe, he's also a talented player. He's had his run in the US team. He scored a lot of goals for the US, so I think he definitely should bid in. And I think overall this US squad is very, very talented, and we are excited for the Copa America as we get to take on Bolivia, Panama, and Uruguay. We're going to take a short break here shortly, but when I come back, we're gonna discuss Jurgen Klopp's emotional farewell and Arne Slot being slated Liverpool manager. So before the break, I discussed Argentina and the US dropping their preliminary Copa America squad. It's been a long day, guys. But now we discuss Jurgen Klopp emotional farewell for Liverpool and Arne Slot taking over for him. Now, as far as Jurgen Klopp, I discussed a lot about Jurgen Klopp's legacy in this week, and I don't want to overdo it. It's just clear to me, I know the high regard I held him when it comes to managers, and the emotional connection that he created with all the fans, not just in Liverpool, but in the Premier League. But yeah, the ending being emotional, he didn't cry, even though we've seen him not being afraid to be vulnerable, crying before whenever he was doing his farewell that he did at Mainz. In fact, at Dortmund, he was afraid he would cry, so he didn't even do a farewell. He recorded a pre-recorded video, and put it up on the board. And this one, was more leveled, more thinking the fans, trying to get them, excited for the future, getting them ready for the future, saying, reiterating him being a Liverpool fan, wishing success for them, talking about the memories and all that. It was a good ending. You saw guys like Virgil van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold being very emotional, which, when it's a manager like Jurgen Klopp, yeah. But I think the most beautiful part of it is when, Pep Guardiola, keep in mind, this is fresh off winning 4th Premier League consecutive. They're asking him in the press conference, talking about the quote Jurgen Klopp said, and him getting emotional, being almost on the verge of tears, talking about how Jurgen Klopp challenged him and how Jurgen Klopp is a great person and a great manager, and the levels that he created or was able to get at was because of Guardiola, was because of Klopp, and just showed the impact Klopp had. It's unmatched, it's phenomenal, and he's a legend. But we do, and him being the class act as he was, he started chanting Liverpool's next manager's name, Arne Slot, la 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 la. Yeah, started chanting that. wanted the Liverpool fans to chant with him. He got that going, which is the perfect segue. Arne Slot, he confirmed it himself. Liverpool also confirmed that he's coming in to Liverpool. He won the Eredivisie last year. He won the Dutch Cup this year. He did it with Feyenoord, which is not a team like Ajax. You know, he did it with a lesser team or so in the Dutch league. The 45-year-old was officially announced as the successor 24 hours after Jurgen Klopp's final game. Slot said his farewell to his club Feyenoord on Sunday, and on June 1st he's going to start his new role as a Liverpool manager. Liverpool had to agree a £9.4 million compensation package with Feyenoord earlier this month to reach agreement on personal terms with Arne Slot. Slot did confirm the news on Friday, and there was also Liverpool considered other options like Xabi Alonso and Ruben Amorim, but Michael Edwards, the head of football operations, made the decision to hire Arne Slot. And they made this decision last month, but they didn't want to overshadow what was going on with Jurgen Klopp's departure out of respect for his legacy. Now, Arne Slot, he has a good reputation of being able to make a team better than the sum of their parts in terms of points per game. At AZ Alkmaar and at Feyenoord, he's had success at multiple clubs, winning the Eredivisie in 2022-2023, taking them to the finals of the Europa Conference League in 2022. He plays very high energy football, possession-based football, very dynamic. He's a very good communicator, and he has that Klopp-like personality, kind of, but he does have a hard task in trying to continue this rebuild that Jurgen Klopp started off this year, trying to continue off this rebuild. The beautiful thing about him is he's looking like Salah. He's gonna come back so he can build around Salah, who said, I'm gonna fight to continue winning trophies for Liverpool. So that's going to make it easier for him. But again, following a guy like Jurgen Klopp, not just the manager, but the person, it's going to be a very, very hard task. It's almost an impossible task. That's a very, very, very difficult task. And I can imagine if the results start going bad early, the media going very, 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 very hard on him. I could imagine that. I mean, it's just how it is. It's just how it is, especially when you're following up a guy like him. A guy like Jurgen Klopp, there's going to be expectations that is just unachievable expectations, to be honest. Just unachievable. But people need to understand that even Jurgen Klopp, when he came in, it was a process. They were really struggling. The defense was really bad whenever it started off with Jurgen. They were horrible defensively. He had to bring in a $100 million goalkeeper, $80 million center back, and that's when the defense started becoming very, very solid. Now he does the football. The style of football is going to be very, very good under Arne Slot. It's not going to be boring park the bus football or anything like that. But it's not going to be the same gegenpress, high energy. It is going to be high energy, but with Liverpool, it's very like heavy metal, live or die. There's a little bit of more possession based in here, a little bit more closer to the Barcelona tiki-taka way than the Jurgen Klopp, Ralf Rangnick way. But it's still quality football, and it's still appeasing football, and it's still a way to keep Anfield electric and the atmosphere to be very, very high and very, very steady. And he does have experience of making a team with less talent rise up and be better. I think it will be a good signing. Personally, I don't know. I think I would have went with Xabi just because of the way that Leverkusen has been this season. But Arne Slot, he could really fit the role too. And I think he could be a brilliant manager for Liverpool if he's given the patience and if he's not expected to do what Jurgen Klopp did, especially right away. But yeah, thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sport Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again.